Hello, dear colleagues. We are happy to be here. Thanks for this opportunity. So now we are going to talk about the problem with the definition.
Let's speak into this, okay?
Okay, I'm sorry. With the definition of the first and third person perspective. There are a number of arguments that were produced by using first-person methods and which have played an important role in the philosophy of mind. And we are going to start with David Chalmers' distinguish of two concepts of mental, phenomenal, and psychological concepts. Just one second.
The phenomenal concept of the mental corresponds to the first-person descriptions. In other words, there are consciously experienced states. The psychological concept, on the contrary, is the third-person description of the mental, in which the mental is investigated as the causal and explanatory basis of behavior. David Chalmers describes all kinds of reduction of one method to
Speak low.
One method to another throughout history. Different opinions on what method to approach the question of consciousness with results in different philosophical positions. Regarding in the discussion of philosophy of mind-body problem. Several philosophers have put forward arguments that criticize the popular interpretation of consciousness as a processing information machine. They noted that such a concept unnecessarily reduces the important aspects of the mind-body problem as the phenomenal or qualitative character of mind. The question what it is like to be cannot be reduced to the psychological concept of the mental because the connection between physical processes and subjective experience isn't clarified. This lack of clarity, as Levin writes, is an explanatory gap. Furthermore, David Chalmers, in his article Facing Up the Problem of Consciousness, raised the question of the hard problem of consciousness, separating it from the easy problems. This separation is the division of the mind-body problems into problems that can be solved applying third-person method and the problem that concerns the individual experience of the subject. The hard problem of consciousness raises the question of how physical processes cause the inner experience that we have. This problem has become central to the whole discussion. Let us consider first-person method in more detail. It consists in studying the direct experience of a subject, which is described by the subject himself. Such studies touch upon what is called qualia, or otherwise addresses to the question of what it is like to be. The opposite method is a third-person method, in which a researcher works in the view from nowhere model. Thus, the third-person perspective isn't directly related to the subject's experience. At the same time, first-person methods are limited to the scope of the subject's view. There are different types of explanations of the division into first and third person. At first glance, it seems that the first-person method isn't an independent method.
Primarily, it faces criticism in the analytical discussion of consciousness Since this method is limited by the subject, several philosophers question its usefulness. So, for example, according to Metzinger, the first-person methodology is a discredited research problem and comes down to a subjective look at each random individual experience. This is the purest blue that anyone can perceive, versus no, it isn't, it has a slight shade of a green hue. The same is stated by Daniel Dennett, who writes that the first-person perspective is a discipline with no method, no data, no result, no future, no promise. Another example is the argument from the anomalousness of phenomenal consciousness, which was proposed by Kit Frankish. It sounds like this. Phenomenal consciousness is anomalous with respect to standard properties. It resists explanation in physical and structural terms and seems detectable only from a certain perspective, which is the first-person perspective. One then adds that premise that apparent anomalousness is strong evidence for illusion, and thereby concludes that if consciousness could be an illusion, then we have a good reason to believe that it is one. In the case first-person perspective is not supported by third-person data, and it serves as one of the premises for the argument in favor of illusionism. So Daniel Dennett proposed a method which is not supported by third-person data, and this also serves as one of the premises for the argument in favor of illusionism. So the method is heterophenomenology, which considers first-person method, but in itself it is a third-person method. Heterophenomenology incorporates the advantages of first-person research as it interprets phenomenal events, international acts, but treats them with a degree of skepticism. He continues Ryle's reflection, pointing out that first-person method extrapolates in its conclusion as it's enclosed in a framework in which it mixes the data itself with the interpretation of this data. Therefore, a method is needed that would adequately interpret what is sent to it from the first-person perspective. And this method should come from the third-person perspective. The essence of this method is following. Primary data are collected, the subject's statements about his or her experience, which at first are not processed and not interpreted. They are then recorded by a scientist who perceives this data as certain beliefs of the subject. That is, the scientist is obliged not to evaluate these descriptions from the point of trust and truth, but to treat them as what the subject believes in. And in this respect, Dennett's method corresponds to the phenomenological project, which considers not so much data as a data itself, but rather as a certain setting on which this data is built. So another example of this case, where first-person method is not an autonomous one, is the position of Shoemaker of the first-person perspective. Shoemaker holds a slightly different position. He emphasized that there are a number of areas in the philosophy of mind in which first-person imaginings have played an important role in philosophical reflection. This includes the issue of whether the identity of a time of a person involves the identity of a body or brain, the issue of whether disembodied existence of person is a possibility, and the issue whether spectrum inversion is a possibility, and others, some others. In many of these cases, he agrees with the possibility claim that first-person imaginings have been used to support. He thinks that personal identity doesn't require bodily identity or brain identity, and he thinks that spectrum inversion is a possibility. But he thinks also that in these cases, the possible states of affairs in question are ones that could be known to obtain from the third-person perspective. So the first-person point of view doesn't provide a perspective from which, starting with no assumptions about the relations between mental and physical states of affairs and about the causal role of mental states, one can perceive to investigate empirically what these relations and roles are, first discovering what they are in one's own case, and then extrapolating inductively to the case of others. So on another hand, there is another understanding of first-person methods. So some contemporary authors question of whether a phenomenological tradition can create a methodology that explores consciousness from the first-person perspective. First-person method here is considered to be an adaptation of the method of Bracketing, which was offered by Edmund Husserl. Unlike Bracketing, first-person methods don't carry out epoche and can be examined in the context of the first-person. In the content of the third-person perspective. In this connection, first-person methods are criticized by some phenomenologists, such as Glendinning, Morand, and others. They point to Husserl's antinaturalism. The fact is that phenomenology suspends the natural setting, which makes it impossible to even partially use the third-person descriptions. However, Dan Zahavi offers his solution to this problem by pointing to the project of phenomenological psychology in Husserl's theory. So phenomenological psychology, on the one hand, is carried out in a descriptive eidetic form, and on the other hand, unlike transcendental phenomenology, it remains in a natural setting. Thus, now we can notice the discrepancy between authors in the understanding of first-person method. On the one hand, phenomenologists try to define first-person method as the method that allows one to study the structure of consciousness, applying experience, which is accessible to the subject of this experience itself. In this case, first-person perspective doesn't simply retell the content of the available experience. On the other hand, the prevailing understanding of the first-person perspective involving the description of different phenomenal contents of individual subjects. And in this respect, the first-person method can be considered as a non-autonomous method. So it is necessary to create such a project that would adequately conceptualize the first-person data, as well as their limitation and relation by implementing a phenomenological first-person ground expansion project. This method can become a standalone method within the discussion, or with simple definition, it will be completed by a third-person method. So thank you for your attention. Yes, if you have any question, we will answer.
Thank you so much. If there is any question, please raise your hand. Myself, I personally have a question that I ask here. It seems intuitive that we can have an objective view of the personal side of the subjective experience. We can describe the every subjective experiences in the world in the terms of an object from the outside. The question of mine is that why it seems not possible. Why it seems impossible to build up a theory that push all these experiences together and do not face this this first person problem that you presented.
So your question is, let me just retell so I can maybe understand it or not. So if it is possible that we can describe first-person data from the third-person point of view, then it makes all the project of first-person methods just unnecessary, right? And the problem just removes.
Somehow to some point it is true, but my exact question was that we have an access through the first person point of view, and beside that there's a conception that the first person that the subjective experience is itself can be objectified, so we can have a theory that is not based on the first person data, but the first person data can support can help this project of the objective data, you know.
Well, this is exactly what we have told. So this method can be an autonomous method if it needed, but it also can be just part of third-person method, which can describe our mental states in more maybe complete description.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Please ask your question, Dr. Kulmaz.
Thanks for your presentation. It's the usual, but what's your final conclusion? You know, we have. Do you think that first-person data is incredible? You know, we have first-person data. I feel such and such. What is likeness data? Okay, on one hand, and fMRI, EEG, information processing data, on the other hand, third-person data. Okay, without a bridge between them, we have just two huge mountains of data. Okay, how can it help us, the first-person data?
However, we have some intuition, first-person intuitions that have to be conceptualized, and perhaps whereas there is a problem in the philosophy of mind that there are different, perhaps the types of understanding the same phenomenon, then we just want to try to make this philosophy, this concept unified. This is why for all position to so they can perhaps talk about and discuss one concept, not different ones. I'm not sure that I was understanding.
Thank you so much.